Exercise 12.2, midpoint of line segments and the distance formula. Midpoint formula is one that you shouldn't really have to memorize. It should make sense to you when you hear midpoint of what we do to find that. If you take two tests and you score a 90% on one test, you score a 75% on another test, and you want to know what's the point in the middle, it's the same thing as finding an average. I would take the 90% test, add it to the 75% test, divide by 2. That's exactly what you do for a midpoint. Midpoint, I add up the x coordinates, divide by 2, find the average of those, add up the y coordinate, divide by 2, which is like finding the average of the y coordinates. So find the midpoint between these 2 points. Simply take the x coordinates, add them up, take the y coordinates, add them up. There's your midpoint. So I have -5 plus 11 divide by 2, 8 plus 34, and divide by 2. -5 plus 11 is 6. 8 plus 34 is 42. Divide, simplify, we get 321. There's the midpoint. Letter B. Same thing. Take the x's, add them up, divide by 2. 4 plus 1 divided by 2. Take the y's, -6 plus -14. Add those up, divide by 2. 4 plus 1 is 5. -6 plus -14 is -20. Simplify 5 halves. We cannot simplify, so we're going to leave that as a fraction. -20 divided by 2 is -10. There's the midpoint between those. Example 2. One endpoint of a diameter is located at the ordered pair 13,1, and the center is at 15,10. Find the other endpoint of the diameter. Okay, so in this case, we have a circle that's centered at 15,10. So I know that ordered pair right there is 15,10. We know that the diameter has an endpoint at 13,1. We want to know what's the other endpoint of this diameter. A couple things you can do here. You should be able to just look at this and come up with the midpoint. We're also going to show you how you can do it, though, algebraically. In this case, we know the center of the circle is halfway across the diameter. So if we start as 13 in x, halfway there we're at 15 when we get all the way to this last endpoint here. So we go from here, we start at 13. Here we end up at 15, so we move 2 spots. We need to move 2 more spots. We should see that that x coordinate has to be 17. Same thing with the y coordinates. Start here at 1, go to 10. So I've moved 9 units. I need to move 9 more units to get to that. We should see that that y coordinate has to be at 19. If you don't really see that, you can do it algebraically as well. We know that a midpoint of the x coordinate, I'm going to add the x's up, divide by 2. In this case, we know the midpoint. The midpoint is the center of the circle. That's at 15. Take the 2 x's, 13 and x, and now solve that equation for x. Multiply the 2 to the other side. Subtract the 13. We get x is 17, which is the same thing we got here when we just thought about it. Do the same thing for y's. Midpoint y coordinate is the sum of the y's divided by 2. We know the y coordinate of the center is at 10. The 2 y coordinates that are endpoints of the diameter are 1 and y. Solve that equation for y. Again, multiply by 2. Subtract the 1. Y is 19. There's our ordered pair that represents the other endpoint. Distance formula. Distance formula is the square root of the difference in x's squared plus the differences in y's squared. Biggest thing with the distance formula is make sure you follow order of operations. Underneath this radical, we must do what's inside both sets of parentheses first, then square each thing individually, then add the two together, and the very last thing you do then is take the square root of that value. Okay, so looking at our first one here, find the distance between these 2 points. So I'm going to start with the distance formula. Difference in x's, 2 minus 5 squared plus the difference in y's, 2 minus 6 squared. Follow order of operations. Do the subtraction first. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Now do the exponents. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 squared is 16. Take the square root. Distance between those 2 points is 5 units. Letter B. Find the distance between these 2 points. Distance. Difference in x's, 2 minus 9 squared, plus difference in y's, 3 minus 10 squared. 2 minus 9, negative 7. 3 minus 10, negative 7. Square each of those. Negative 7 squared is 49. Add them up. We get root 98. Now you need to simplify that as much as possible. Since the ACT is a multiple choice type test, even if you do not know how to simplify this, you should at least be able to plug square root of 98 into your calculator, get a decimal, go to your answer choices, change those to decimals, and see which one matches up. The way that you would break this down is you would have to recognize that 98 is 49 times 2. Square root of 49 is 7. We're left inside with 2.